Okay, welcome to episode 31 of the Ryan Stevens podcast. So, it's been a while since the last one, and I'm here with DanWalksUK. We're about to climb Snowdon. Morning, don't mind us. Yeah, we're about to climb Snowdon now. Like I said, I haven't done one of the podcasts for a couple of months, but this one's a special one. So, Dan is going to tell you a little bit about his story now, and we're probably going to be gassed as we walk up Snowdon, so don't mind us. Yeah, I mean, me and Dan, we met, was it about 6-7 weeks ago in the Gower. Oh, cheers guys, thank you. Met 6 or 7 weeks ago in the Gower, and very random, I was just, we're doing one of the runs for Love Trails, and all of a sudden, seeing a guy walking past with a massive backpack with a sign on the back of it, and I kind of thought, I need to speak to him, I need to figure out what he's doing. Ran back after him, and spoke to Dan, and then obviously I was blown away by what he's actually doing, which is, well, I'll tell you about that now in a sec. But yeah, without further ado, here's Dan. So, do you want to just, obviously for the people listening, people watching and stuff, just maybe give an idea of what you are actually doing, sir?
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm walking the entire UK coastline, including its islands, for the Armed Forces charity SSAFA. So, yeah, for context, I've been walking for the past 2 years. I've done just over 7,000 miles. I've done 67 islands, and yeah, I've done all of Scotland, quite a lot of islands there, all of the east coast of the UK, all of the south, now heading up the west round Wales, and we're here in Snowdonia, heading up to Snowdon, and we're going to be hanging it.
Yeah, I think we're going to be gassed in a bit, but like that was what blew me away when we met, obviously a couple of weeks ago. You know, I thought you were going to be doing the Welsh coastal path. I didn't really expect you to say you were going to be doing the entire UK. And so you started 2 years ago, you said. What was the initial kind of reason, to start doing it?
Yeah,
obviously we've had this conversation, but morning guys. All right, don't mind us.
Yeah, so I was, I'll go right back to the beginning really. So, growing up, I was, I was growing up with my mum, who was a single mum at the time, and then she got a boyfriend that was a bit of a narcissist at the time, and my mum and that were with him for a few years. So actually, probably like 12, 15 years or something they were together for. And he used to cheat. My mum used to lie. It was very narcissistic. So it was a very toxic, very survival-like environment. And I wanted to get away from it all. So I decided to join the army when I was 16. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to join the army when I was 16, but also, I guess in some ways, it was a bit of an ego boost in some ways, try to get women, all that kind of thing. So, it wasn't for the right reasons. So when I joined, I was just, I came from I guess most of my friends were into drugs and drinking and stuff like that, and I had that kind of childhood when I was growing up. So,
so it's a way of like getting away from it almost, is it, and doing something like maybe somewhat different to like, what your mates and that were doing, almost like taking you out of the environment, is it?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So it was mostly just survival mode. I had no direction. I didn't have a male figure in my family or anyone to look up to when I was younger. So, I joined the army. And I got diagnosed during my time in the army with an autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis, which is an inflammatory autoimmune disease which affects the spine and hips. I get flare-ups along my hips and in my spine, and for a long time when I was in the army, I couldn't do a lot of things. So like, I couldn't walk properly. I couldn't get out of bed, things like that, and it was a real struggle. But for 2 years I wasn't diagnosed properly, so
Yeah.
um,
So you didn't
yeah,
really know what it was. You just like couldn't really pinpoint it down, and I suppose it made it like the training and stuff a lot more difficult to try and get through, did it?
yeah, pretty much. So I was on sick a lot,
Yeah.
which you know, in the army you can't.
Probably.
You need to have a bit of a,
Yeah.
I guess, camaraderie.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Cheers.
And yeah, I couldn't fit in with the lads. I couldn't. The only reason, so yeah, started to get bullied, started to become depressed in the army. I was feeling really down. I wasn't really aware of myself consciously and what I was doing. I wasn't very self-aware, so a lot of things were happening to me. I was eating a lot of crap. I was playing video games. I was shutting myself in my room, and I wasn't really getting out. And yeah, being pals with folk and stuff like that. I was just in this mental space that wasn't really great, and plus I had a lot of things going on at home as well.
Yeah.
So I decided to. I was going to get medically discharged, but I didn't want to be in the army at all. So I ended up smoking a bit of weed, and then telling my commander that I smoked a bit of weed.
Yeah.
And yeah, ultimately I got chucked out in July 2017.
Yeah.
And yeah, just I guess, you know, the chains were off really. I could do what I want. I had freedom, so I just literally, yeah, went downhill from there pretty much. I started doing more harsher drugs like cocaine, MDMA, and yeah, it was just a downward spiral. I was drinking constantly. I ended up losing my driver's license.
Yeah.
As well, which was one of the bigger factors of my depression. I lost my driver's license because I overtook a car, and I never caused a crash, but the person that was coming towards me, we both emergency stopped quite close to each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, instead of me driving away, I thought I did the right thing by going up to the window and apologising.
Yeah.
But she got out of the car and was like, "You could have killed my kids," and all that kind of stuff. And she was absolutely raging. "I'm going to phone the police," and stuff like that. So I was like, fucking hell. So anyways, yeah, that took me a year through the courts. And it looked like I was going to get away with, not dangerous driving. What's the other one?
Driving undue care and attention.
Yes, yeah. So it's like the less severe, you get your license, 6 points.
Yeah.
But yeah, the judge basically said you need to grow up, and slapped me with a 15-month driving ban and a £600 fine.
So a big example of you then, really.
Pretty much, I wasn't. I wasn't mentally stable at the time, but I mean that just sent me, I suppose, and I started doing daft things with my money. I started gambling, my rent money and stuff like that. I fell out with my ex at the time. We were engaged, and I had a house to pay for. I couldn't pay my gas or lecky. I had everything that was going on in my family life, and I had all the things physically that was happening to me as well. And I wasn't sure what was going on. So yeah, I was in a really bad and dark space. I was contemplating suicide. I just didn't really want to be here, man. Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning as well. So you were probably, what, 23 at this point, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're obviously 27 now, is that right?
27.
Yeah. So 27 now, 23, you know, when this was happening. And obviously they're supposed to be engaged to have, you know, the house and all those responsibilities, to have already been in and out of the army in that time. It's still quite a lot without actually then, you know, having the mental health challenges on top of it, realistically, isn't it? You know, because, hang on, we've just reached this point here. I'm going to turn this round to show. Look at this. Fantastic. Lovely. We're going to get in for a dip as well shortly, aren't we? So, yeah, I don't know how far away it is and if we'll still be doing the podcast then, but we shall see. But, so yeah, going back to that, I mean, so when you said, like, obviously, like you said, a lot of those things sort of happened sort of after you got out of the military? Do you feel like that was maybe, or what contributed to it was that sort of lack of, not knowing really where you wanted to go or what you wanted to do next, so maybe feeling a bit lost, perhaps. Do you think that was like a precursor to those other things, or do you think that was, just sort of part of something bigger? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of both things, really. Yeah, it was definitely a mixture of things that have happened in the past, no sense of direction, no one to really guide me, to teach me anything, really, to really put the time and effort to be like, fucking hell, man, you're a good lad, but you're struggling here, you need to turn your act around, and, I had no guidance whatsoever. I had no direction, and I couldn't. I think this is what the biggest thing as well with social media now is that we have all this information out there. Like people like David Goggins, Joe Rogan, all these great motivators, influencers that are trying to inspire people, and these are the people that inspired me to turn my life around. I ended up I split up with my ex. I was in a really bad state, and I got in touch with a charity called SSAFA. They're an armed forces charity that help veterans and their families with financial difficulties. So I was going to get evicted. I had no gas or lecky. I was behind on my bills. I had a lot of other bills because of my gambling. So like I had payday loans. I had loads of other stuff. This guy just came in, sorted that all out. He took me out for a hot meal, and then he filled my fridge up with food and water and what have you. So, it just sorted me out. And, I used that. And, I just started working on myself from there. I started researching things. I was in a state of mind where I just didn't want to be back where I was, and I wanted to use that help that I got given to turn my life around. I could have easily just got what I was given and just kept going on the same path, but I really, something happened that day where he was speaking to me where, I really didn't want to make it, I didn't want to waste it really. I didn't want to waste that opportunity to, anyways, I managed to turn my life around. I went on the internet, things like meditation, yoga, breathing techniques, going to the gym, exercise. I never realised how big exercising was. Like, when I was in the army, I just used to absolutely hate it. Hated running, hated everything about it. But now, complete opposite end of the spectrum. It's so good for my mental health.
Doesn't really do it justice in the video, but we've only just walked, well, this is the first time, it's the first mountain you've climbed, actually.
Yes.
It's the first mountain Dan's climbed. And it's my third time coming up Snowdon, I think. Maybe third time. But never come up this way. So, this is all new. So, sorry, carry on. So, you carried on. You said then about, gambling.
Yeah. So, things like, all that stuff, that I was doing was obviously a catalyst for me turning my life around. So, I started researching all these things, and I was like, God, I actually had a question in my mind, and I was like, I've never actually had anything that was taught to me about well-being and fitness. Which is a mad dog behind us.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we picked up two dogs, like. So you never had anything taught you about well-being and fitness in the military or in general?
In the military.
Right.
So there's nothing like this in the military. We had
in terms of like why fitness is important for your well-being and other things you can do to manage your well-being. You mean, is that?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So things that it was a topic that never got taught or touched on whatsoever.
Yeah.
I never got taught anything like meditation in my life. Things like yoga and stuff like that. So when I started looking at this, it was like a revelation for me. I was like, this is a tool that's so good for my well-being. I just thought, why hasn't everybody else been taught this? Or, and yeah, so, anyways, the military still have this, I guess, idea that obviously men should be strong-minded and all that kind of stuff. And I remember as well during my time in the army that there was a sergeant major, a really good, has come from the hard generation, has been there for years, and I remember a guy getting signed off for depression, and I remember him saying, "Depression? I mean, what is that? Like, what has it got? What has it got anything to be depressed about?" Like, you still have that idea where, that stigma where it's not good, I suppose, in some ways to talk about it.
Yeah.
It was 2017 when I got out, so obviously it's probably a lot different now. But mental health has certainly gone up in terms of
the awareness about it, and
in those last few years. So, to walk in the UK coastline, I suppose, from being in, turning my life around and stuff, I had it was a massive process of just constantly working on myself, journaling, meditation, all that kind of stuff. And I came to a point when COVID happened. I lost my job during COVID, and I didn't see my mental health going downhill, but I could see other people's mental health was going downhill. And I just had a great sense of just wanting to help everyone, I suppose, in that, in a sense of I wanted to inspire people and try help them with their mental health. And I didn't know what to do. I just knew I had to do something. So I meditated. I sat and meditated, had nothing, no phone, no nothing. I meditated for 4 hours straight. And this idea just dropped into my mind. And I came in and it was like, why don't you walk around the entire UK coastline? Like, I was looking at the coastline, I suppose, and I was like, walking it, and then I zoomed out and I was like, I could walk through that. And it was like, it was just, I could walk through it. I could try and inspire people and talk about my story. And
morning all.
I just thought it was like a eureka moment, and I jotted it all down. I wrote it all down, and then 5 weeks later, I sold everything that was in my house. I gave my house back to the council, and then I set off with like a 50 quid bag. I had 30 quid boots from Sports Direct. I had a festival pop-up tent that was like 30 quid. A massive disc. So I was carrying it like a handbag.
I know which one. They're hard. They're easy to pop up.
Yeah.
They're a nightmare to try and like actually thing down afterwards, aren't they? Those ones.
It was just literally start from the beginning, and the only thing that was in my head was, I'm just going to make a difference. I'm going to make a difference to people's lives. It didn't matter about anything that I had on me or anything like that. I had at the time, pure courage and wisdom to just go into that, lean into it and just go and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And 2 years, just over 2 years now. And here we are.
So there's two things I was going to say about that. We had a conversation about one of them this morning, didn't we? But morning, you okay? One of them is when you said about so the idea of like just going, right, that's it. I'm going to go. This a little wander here. It looks quite nice in there. The idea of saying, right, I'm just going to quit everything, leave everything, and start sort of walking around the UK, and that like relinquishing of all the obligations. Obviously, that's something that I find really interesting, and I think a lot of people, I don't want to say relate to, but a lot of people will latch on to when they realise what you're doing, because they start to maybe look at their own lives and think, hang on, like I couldn't do that because I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got that, and we think about these obligations and these responsibilities or these things that we have, whether it's a house or a job or kids and things, and obviously some responsibilities like kids are not, they're a bit more, you know, they're a bit harder to just leave. But, you know, I think that idea of just going, I'm going to go and just do this thing is a really difficult, I'd say, concept for people to sort of comprehend, but also admirable at the same time. And I think the other aspect of, you know, what you were saying as well is you mentioned about it, like almost intuition, isn't it? So you just felt like this is something I need to do. Oh, I need to do something, not really knowing what that thing is. Yeah, yeah, not really knowing what that thing is, and then almost maybe pulling on like this, like you said, that like, you know, inspiration, looking at like the UK, thinking, yeah, I can walk that. And I don't know, I just feel like those intuitive moments and those feelings we get about doing something, like I've had that a few times in my life, and I think those choices that I've made off the back of that like intuitive feeling have been some of the most important choices I've ever made. I just think that there's a lot to be said for that, you know, and it's almost, how would you, you know, for somebody like listening and watching, how would you tune into that feeling? Would you say meditation's like a really good tool for that, or anything else in particular?
Yeah, I think, like meditation, there's a lot to be said about it, and I think there's a lot of other things that you can do. You can certainly meditate on it, but I think to really have a clear intuition without any of the intrusive thoughts or other garbage that goes through your mind is to sit and just be with it, you know? You can, but there's other ways you can do it. It's not just meditation, which I came to realise, because a lot of people don't like meditating.
Yes.
So even things like fishing. Fishing is absolutely amazing. Walking, obviously, is amazing. What all these things do is, even though that you do have things that are on your mind.
Try to get some of this background in as well while we're talking.
Even though that you do have all these things in your mind, like things that have happened in the past, and all the things that have, you know, that have led you to your current circumstances at the minute. What all these, I guess, well-being things do is that it brings it to the front of your mind so that you have to deal with it. If you don't deal with it, it's just going to keep coming up. I'll try and think of an example. Things that have happened in your behaviour, things that you've done wrong to people. Like, I don't want to hurt anyone. That's one of the biggest things for me. So I try my best to do whatever I can, whether that's going into the past to try and figure out my character and who I am, so that I just don't be nasty or, you know, let those behaviours out to other people, because I know what it's like to be down and sad and depressed and, you know, not having that connection with anyone. So it's just trying to work on yourself in a way that, you know, it benefits you and benefits others and your family and friends and, you know, the whole world ultimately. I mean, Michael Jackson made a song about it, you know, and it was, you know, Man in the Mirror, you know.
I always think of the exact same thing as soon as you said it, and that's exactly what I was thinking. It is, and like you say, what is it? If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. And it is, it's so true, isn't it? I think you know, if you want to learn how to think better, be better, you know, and do better actions and make better thoughts, all the rest of it, you know, it completely changes your character, it completely changes the way that you interact with the world and other people. And, you know, that will not only affect their lives, but it'll affect the lives of the people around them, because if you have a positive interaction with somebody who, let's just say, you know, they work in a coffee shop, they mess your order up. You could either say to them, oh, you're a fucking idiot, you're useless, you're this and that, whatever, and like really ruin their day. That will not only impact their mental health and their emotions and how they feel on that given day, but they could go and take that out on so many other people, or they could drive erratically, or there's so many different things that they could do off the back of that sort of way that you've been to them. Whereas the other option is, like you say, if you were to learn the art of patience and forgiveness, and also just to, you know, decency as well, so not being horrible to them, you could say, oh, it's okay, not a problem at all, you take your time, you look lovely today, by the way, you know, or whatever it is, you know, just something that will go, you know, it makes them feel good, it uplifts them, and, you know, they're more likely then to have positive interactions with the people who come into the coffee shop afterwards. They're more likely to, you know, have positive interactions with the people in their household and things like that. And yeah, it's that spiral effect, isn't it? Almost, or domino effect. You know, you just do good, and other people will experience it as well. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. So yeah, no, but what in terms of the actual walk itself, what have been some of the hardest points as well? If we can carry on walking now, is trying to show some of the scenery as we go along here, and it's looking amazing. It is incredible, isn't it? We've picked it out of a path, I'll be honest. Yeah, in terms of like the walk. So what have been? We talk about the. I tell you what, if we talk about the good points first, some of the most memorable points and some of the things, you know, best parts you've had, and then we'll talk about the not so good parts if you want.
Yeah. So the good parts is obviously the kindness of strangers. And obviously you touched on a really good subject there as well, which was like resilience as well.
Yeah.
And coming up against things that are difficult and hard. And just obviously discipline and responsibility and stoicism as well.
And what? Stoicism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the good parts, I've seen loads of beautiful scenery, wildlife. I've seen orcas, I've seen golden eagles, I've seen an osprey carrying a fish that's flown right over my head.
Yeah.
It's just been absolutely spectacular with the things that have happened in nature. But resilience and the bad things, or the things that I don't really want to happen to me, are probably my favourite things about the walk. Like if it's absolutely chucking it outside, and I'm like, I've got the thoughts in my head, and I'm like, I don't really want to do this today. I just want to sit in the cafe, have this drink. I procrastinate, I think about it, and I'm like, oh, if I actually go out there and just get it done, I'll get more miles, I'll be closer to home, I'll be inspiring people, and in return, the reward for that is just, long-term gratification. It is the sense of achievement in yourself. I don't need something external, like a reward of like food or accommodation or something like that. I don't really need that.
Yeah.
It's more inside how important it makes me feel.
Shit.
And I think, we're in an age where we have short-term gratification, when we're scrolling on TikTok or we're swiping on Tinder or, all of that kind of stuff, and we're just looking for that quick fix, going to McDonald's, all that kind of stuff. Where, if we actually take the time to, instead of going to McDonald's, why don't you make a really good meal? Go to the butcher's, go and grab some really fresh organic fruit and veg, and then make food yourself. The feeling that you get inside is what actually matters. It doesn't matter what happens outside. As long as you look towards the inside and how you feel inside, then everything else will come together.
And do you know what? That's intuitive in itself, isn't it? Like you said, eating not because of, maybe how good it looks, but actually how good it makes you feel and things like that. And I think that, that's something that's, an interesting topic in itself, just because, if you know that something's going to make you feel like shit, but it looks good at the time, food-wise, then, or, even alcohol or whatever it is, like, you can kind of, if you think, actually, you know what, no, long-term, this isn't, like, feeding into what I want to create or the person I want to become and things, you can almost shun that straight away and say, well, I know this doesn't sort of feed into my long-term goal and my mission of who I want to be and whatever, so, it makes it a little bit easier, I think, to distance yourself from it, or stay on the plan or stick with a diet or whatever it is, because that eating that food, or the good food or whatever, is going to nourish you, and, that sort of, it's going to make you feel better inside. Whereas on the flip side, if you're going to eat something crap, it might be nice at the time and taste good, but, it's going to leave you on the sofa like, after it. So it kind of ties in with it, but
as well, I think it's also important to realise that you don't need to take all these things away completely. You can have it as like a treat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think
for the
Yeah.
record, I eat shit all the time, to be fair. So I'm saying this, and I'm always, if I see a donut, I'm having the donut, so I've got nothing, I can't say anything in that sense, but yeah, go on.
So for me, obviously, my autoimmune disease is caused by my diet, so I need to put in the effort so that I don't feel like crap. If I was to eat a pizza, I'd be flatlined. I can't get out of bed. I can't walk properly. It's because of the gluten that's in it. And it's the same with other things. My gut is so sensitive to everything, really. Everything that's chemical. So even things like broccoli and stuff like that, and spinach, all these things, all the type of vegetables that you get. I don't have any vegetables whatsoever apart from chips or sweet potatoes. I have rice as well, but they're my biggest carbs. Apart from that, I don't have anything else. I have fruit and meat, honey, milk, cheese, and that's all I eat. But I do love a can of Coke every now and then. But I know that the consequences of having that, with the glucose syrup and all the colour additives and everything else, is going to absolutely ruin me. I'm going to wake up feeling absolutely sore, aching. I think a lot of rheumatoid arthritis is caused by fructose sugars and all that kind of stuff. So if you're feeling joint pain in your ankles and stuff, I feel it a lot after once I've had something really sugary like that.
Yeah.
I just feel like crap. I wake up and I'm like, I really can't even be bothered walking. So food is a massive factor. I think if you're looking at yourself and you're going to the doctor, if you really need help with the things that are going on in your mind, I really believe that if you're having enough sleep, you're waking up properly and you're going out and getting sunlight in your eyes, you're not taking in the screen light from your phone, you're eating properly, you're meditating, it doesn't even need to be meditating, it could be self-reflection in a way of fishing, walking, exercising, eating properly. If you're not doing any of that, then you need to do that. And if you are doing that and there is still a problem, then go to the doctors and ask for, your citrulline and all that kind of stuff. So
and I think meditation as well. It's a bit of a buzzword, and I think it's typically been sort of associated with more like woo type people or yoga people and things like that, And I think for some people, probably predominantly males, that it kind of puts them off, almost because it just, I don't know, it's the whole like idea of masculinity and things like that. I think that it puts them off from wanting to engage in something like that for the fear of being seen as, I don't know, less masculine or, or whatever, do you know what I mean? Or getting like, banter from their mates. Whereas one way to look at meditation is just ways in which you calm your mind. And I think, we had this conversation this morning actually, didn't we, about, you said about doing loads of press ups and then meditating straight afterwards. And that sort of sense of calmness and peace that you have in your mind after having pushed yourself and done something you didn't want to do, worked out, and then that feeling afterwards. And I get that with running. Running and walking is a form of active meditation. Journaling is a form of written meditation, which I suppose ties in with the self-reflection thing you mentioned. And it's like, it's just sort of realizing, I think, that, these things, there's all different methods. Oh, that is fantastic. It's all different methods of achieving the goal of meditation, which is to sort of clear your mind or to lessen the rate of thoughts coming through. And I think that's a scary thought for a lot of us, is the idea of being alone with our thoughts for a while, isn't it? The idea of sitting there and letting those thoughts go, those intrusive thoughts come through, the ones that we've wanted to sort of shun away or not face up to, that are like lurking around there in the dark. And I think, it's not something that you want to necessarily deep dive into straight away, because, it can be quite overwhelming. And I think like therapy or having mentors or coaches or speaking to people, even if it's friends, and family, all of those things are a great way to start sort of unpacking that. But if you don't want to maybe do that you know, to someone else initially, writing it down is yeah, something I personally found really good, because, you know, you don't have to worry about the fear of judgment, you know, when it's just you sort of writing stuff down. So if you want to slag people off, you can slag people off, and, you know, nobody's ever got to see it, and it's just getting it out of your mind in a way.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said for that. But in terms of the walk as well, so going over to that side of it, I mean, obviously, when we met about 6-7 weeks ago. Hi guys, you right? How's it going? We met 7 weeks ago, something
Can you
like
hold
that.
it for a bit?
No, it's alright. My arm is killing, to be fair, but it's alright. We'll be alright. Yeah, so you were out by the Gower at that point, and you're obviously about 2,000 miles into it in 2 years, and it's only about 7 weeks later, and you're already in North Wales. So, like, how many miles roughly have you been covering every single day? You know, and as that, like, I know you say that's sort of been inconsistent at some points where you've done a little bit less and things like that, but yeah, just run me through the sort of day to day, and also how much you've been powering through some days, and how the days you don't maybe do any walking or whatever.
Yeah. I do roughly about between 15 to 20 miles a day, so that can average between, doing next to no miles to doing a maximum of like 25 miles. I do that pretty much every single day. And I try my best to.
Hey guys, all right? How's it going?
I try my best to do all of that kind of stuff every day and make sure that I get enough donations. I always say a donation a day. Even if it's just a donation, doesn't matter if it's like a penny, you know, I've accomplished that. And also just trying to be inspiring to other people as well. So just even taking the time out to talk to people is one of the main things. So my routine in the morning is I get up roughly about 7, and then I pack away, and then I just start walking. I'll meditate and drink water. I'll have a coffee if I've got time, and then I'll just keep on cracking on. I'll get my breakfast. I fast in the morning, and I'll fast. So I'll probably have my last bit of food between 6 or 7 o'clock. Can be later depending on what's happening.
Are you done with that?
The
waterfall? Yeah, go on. Okay.
Just depending on what's happening that day. And then, start walking, start chatting to people. I have my lunch, which is just fruit, honey, sometimes beef jerky, because I love beef jerky. And then at night times I try to have like mince, eggs. Sometimes I get like steak and stuff like that.
Nice.
Liver. And I just try my best to optimize a lot of recovery. So, in the mornings, it's a difficult path you've taken as well. In the morning, if there is places, I will try my best to get some cold dips in. So obviously I'm next to the sea, so I'll try and jump in. During the winter, I tried to do 60 days. It's not as impressive as your 1,000 dips, but I tried my best to do 60. I probably only done up to like 15. And then I ran out of water because Essex, there's a lot of estuaries, and sometimes I didn't even see water for like a few days, so that was very difficult. But it was like jumping into temperatures of like 5 degrees and stuff like that, and obviously cold dipping and all that kind of stuff is so good for your mental health. I've never felt it has one form of wellness that I absolutely love, hate at the same time, but love, because I know how cold it can be, and I know how good my mind is going to be after it, and I just absolutely love it. I feel like such a better person inside my mind. I feel happier, and it's just wonderful. I do love a wee cold dip, and I think that's something that everybody should get into, really.
Oh my god. Speaking of cold dips, actually, that's very apt timing, because we have just arrived at where the plunge pool is. if you follow me on social, you probably see me banging on about cold water a lot. But this is fantastic. Look how blue that water is. Absolutely stunning. I actually want to thank Chris Knight. So, Oh What a Night is his blog post and his Instagram. Because I looked on there this morning for wild dipping spots in Snowdonia. And lo and behold, we have this, which is on the Watkin path of Snowdon. And this is the sort of backdrop as well. So this is fantastic, I gotta be honest. Cheers for that, Chris. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna get in for a dip. We can, we'll probably have to call the podcast a debut actually, just because I don't think it's a good idea if we take the microphones in. I mean, just to touch on some of the other bits and bobs as well. I mean, what would be for somebody who's a bit lost in life, or just lost at the moment? What would your sort of main messages be to them? What would you kind of say to somebody who's maybe in a situation previous to what you were in before?
Just keep on going, keep on hanging on. Know that there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. It might look grim, it might look absolutely rubbish where you are, but just hang on. The world doesn't put you through these struggles the world puts you through these struggles because it knows that you can go through it and you are strong enough to go through it. It might not seem like it at the time, but when you look back, when you're at a place where you're feeling that you can look back at it and say, well, I know why I was going through that at that time, and it's taught me a lot of things, and it gave you so much wisdom. Just hang on, keep hanging on. Try and contact some friends. Try and go and reach out to charities and things like that. People want to help. That's the most amazing thing about mental health nowadays. And also people, if I'm asking someone if they need a hand, I would absolutely love it if someone went to me and go, yeah, actually, I'm struggling, mate. Can you, give me some advice, or, just help me, or come round to my house or something like that. That's probably one of the biggest things that, people don't realise when they're going through tough times, is that, people really want to help. And if you're struggling and you're feeling like crap, just cry, let it out. There's nothing manly about it or anything like that, just don't need to worry about any of this stigma. Yeah. Cry, let it out, let your emotions come out and feel it, become emotionally aware, and then express it and tell people. Say that you need a hand. People would rather help you than let you struggle, and that's the truth. So, yeah, that's what I have for that.
No, I love that. That's perfect. And like you said, I think it's such an important message as well, especially for blokes, I think, because, like we mentioned briefly earlier on, like we don't tend as blokes, I think, to open up as much or talk about our feelings, because historically that's been seen as, emasculine, or whatever the opposite of masculine is, and I think, it taps in with our more feminine side, but that's a good thing, because I think most blokes, if we do that, it's gonna change how we interact. It's going to change how, not just in our, jobs or things, but with our relationships with the people, in our lives, our families. I think it'll change all of that. And also, like, it'll allow us to, like you said, like, release that kind of stuff that we've got built up. And that's the same for, for women as it is for men as well. I think, if you're building up anything, eventually it's gonna come crashing down at some point, isn't it? So it's just the best to sort of talk about it. But for the people listening and watching, how do they get in touch with you? How do they donate? And how do they follow the progress?
So, you can follow us on, at DanWalksUK, DanWalksUK. That's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Threads. Hardly use that. But, you can find us all on there. I'm updating every single day. There's a daily video on my Facebook. Same with Instagram as well. I try my best to post every single day on the stories. Some days, some weeks, it's the same with everything. I can't be bothered sometimes, and I'll just put my phone off and just start walking for a few days. So you might not hear from me, but, I try my best to keep in touch and stay connected as much as possible. But like that as well, take the time for yourself. If you need to take some time away from social media to reconnect to yourself, and that's probably the best thing that you can do. Even I do it. So yeah, And I look forward to seeing you.
That's partially why as well I thought it'd be good to do the podcast up until the point we get in the water, just because we can enjoy the rest of the walk then without having to be gassed whilst also doing this. And my arm is absolutely killing me. But no, I really appreciate that, and like I said, I appreciate what you're doing as well. And like I said, it was amazing to I've come across you a couple of weeks ago, so I'm very glad I did, brother. Very glad. And yeah, on that note, see you later, guys.
Cheers.